I'm sure we would all like to go back and fix things that we had done in the past. I mean, Dragon Ball's done that. Sometimes these changes were pretty good, and other times, when Toriyama isn't looking, we then get Black Star Balls. Hey guys, MasakoX here. Now, when it comes to Dragon Ball, it's hard to keep track of various things at times. It's a very long series, to be fair, which consists of a lot of things to try and understand, as well as trying to remember these facts, as well as bickering about it on the internet. I mean, it's sort of what I do, but at least for the most part, we have a pretty good idea about what the overall look, feel and tone of Dragon Ball is, and have done so for at least 20 years as a total collective fanbase around the world. That's something to be pleased with. But that doesn't mean that everything is simple. Yes, sometimes creators and writers can't leave well enough alone, and either through pure desire to modify or improve the original product, add some more depth to an otherwise surface level plot point that people were curious about, or even just simply forgetting how the original thing worked and coming up with something else entirely, there are certain devices and things that get changed. It happens over time. And that is what we know as a retcon. A piece of new information that imposes a different interpretation on previously described events, typically used to facilitate a dramatic plot shift or account for an inconsistency. Retcons tend to be used to enhance something, or sometimes used to fix up plot holes, or most of the time, write a story out of a corner which a writer might have found themselves in. That happened a lot in Super. We're not really focusing on the plot holes today per se. We've done that a few times already anyway. What we will discuss are the key times when a new piece of information became apparent to us and changed the story notably. Not all of these things are the worst before you think that's the case. Sometimes a retcon can be a good thing. The ideal reaction for a retcon should be something like this. Oh, so that's how that worked. Neat. And then you move on. A bad one gets you making this video in a way. I've got 11 of these for you, and trust me, there are more, so if you would like me to do another video on this topic, do let me know down in the comments, as well as your best and worst retcons. Maybe we can do a people's choice version of this discussion. Number 1. That time when Patara ran out of time. We're starting off with something a little bit of a hot button topic. Patara. And the idea of fusion is a very exciting one already, to an otherwise bizarre Boo saga. This is hammy and silly and bonkers, and I love it. I also loved the idea initially that the fusion was permanent. It added levity, and it was serious for fans of Goku and Vegeta. Thematically, it's really potent. The characters they knew were about to be melded together, and the components of that being would never be whole again. But ultimately, due to the bad air in Boo supposedly at the time, they were given a reprieve. Or more accurately, the marketing team were given a reprieve, because heaven forfend no more Goku and Vegeta toys! So yeah, Vegeta was around, and then he wasn't anymore. Fair enough. Then we get to the Goku Black arc and we see Vegeta again. But before we get that, we find out a shocking revelation from just one line. Patara isn't permanent after all. Well, it is if one of the fusees is a Kai person. If not, then you only get to fuse for an hour. Okay. I reckon I'm in the minority saying that I don't mind this. In fact, I think it makes sense. In the long-running debate about who is better, Gogeta versus Vegito, the permanency factor of the latter was the thing that broke the latter in terms of power. It was totally imbalanced. Gogeta would defuse eventually, and Vegeta would win out by default. With this change, it levels things out a bit, and explains why Vegito defused in the Boo saga after all. It adds more complexity to the fusion, and levels the playing field more. Now, granted, the time limit is still more than the dance, but it's better than nothing. Not that it matters anymore anyway, because honestly, these days, Gogeta and Vegito are basically one and the same, and that's down to in terms of power level and personality. It's just a matter of what you have to hand at the time in terms of fusing. Do you have earrings or do you have to dance? Also, it proves that Shin knows nothing about Patara, or at least not nearly enough as he should do, if we needed Gowasu to fill us in. Gowasu. Number 2, Broly. The impossible possible. A minor miracle. Broly could be well written? Indeed it was. Now, this was more than just a simple retcon here. This was a full-on reboot. I'm including it here because it is a retcon of sorts, which takes a character from the movie universe and puts him squarely in the main timeline for the first time. And it managed to save us from narrative headaches by making this guy someone we actually care about, and someone we want to see thrive. So far, so good. Toriyama liked the character and wanted to do his own version, simple as that. Takao Koyama, the original creator of the character personality-wise, must have been figuratively weeping that day Toriyama got the green light for this. I never thought I would live to see the day where Broly, of all people, would be seen as an interesting character and not just a meathead. Okay, he still exhibits the original muscle mountain of the old one, but that was important to keep around in some capacity, or otherwise, it's not Broly. I won't go on about this for too long, but suffice it to say, this was a huge boost for Dragon Ball, and it pleased everybody. That, and he's got his own posse now, so how could you not call that a success? Who would have thought that we would have been cheering for Gogeta to not end Broly? That being said though, this movie did have a couple of spanners to throw into our works. Number 3, Scouters. Just who made the ruddy things? Scouters. Pretty synonymous with the show, aren't they? Like them or loathe them for what they were, they are part of the core of Dragon Ball Z, and in a way, quite a cute little subversion of Frieza's dominance. It was all down to numbers with him, how well you did, and our Dragon team just came along and just went, no. They just tore up the Frieza Company rulebook by hiding power levels, getting around it. That's not the point of this placement. What we are discussing is just who made them. For the longest time, we knew that these devices were pilfered from the Sufurians, or Tupples, whatever's your tipple. Okay, that's totally reasonable and believable. It's just you go, okay, and you go along. It's actually a sign of respect in a way from the Saiyans. They wanted the planet for themselves, they won out, but they did acknowledge that their adversary's technology was worth keeping around. It became part of their makeup going forward, and then, when Frieza's goons, or the not-Arcosians, showed up to work with them, the tech got thrown into the mix too. It's pretty cool. Like, it's part of the history of the Saiyans. They brought stuff to the table, not just their power. And sure, they were gained through nefarious purposes, but at least they came from an interesting place, Scouters. Not so anymore, it seems. In the Broly movie, it's all made by Kikuno. Scouters, armor that we know as Saiyan armor, everything. Everything that made the Saiyans who they were from a visual point of view, they were just little gifts from the Freezer and Cold forces. Yes, okay, that's more logical from a logistics point of view for an empire, but just to have all that be handed to the Saiyans on a silver platter, instead of being something they brought to Freezer's table, something they could contribute in terms of not just power, it cheapens the Saiyans. You could call this a plot hole, in that the Tuffles are being forgotten about and considered filler characters, so not important, but if we're led to think that Zabuto from Universe 2 is a Tuffle, and he's part of the main story, then what are we doing here? Sorry, Toriyama, but I like the original Acquisition Chestnut more. Number 4. Goku's age and memory. Another thing that we got from the Broly movie being confirmed from Minus, being hammered in even more, and for anime fans only for the first time, Goku wasn't a baby when he was sent to Earth. He was instead about 3 years old or so, and wearing Saiyan armor, as well as having some kind of imprint of his parents, despite the fact he couldn't talk. Also, that Saiyan armor, where did it go? Nobody asked any questions? Okay. Then we get Jarko involved too, meaning he is with Goku pretty much all of his life. This came from Dragon Ball Minus, and that was pretty divisive in of itself, and hasn't been fully condemned by the fanbase simply because Guinea became the thing, and everybody loves Guinea. That was its saving grace, especially after diminishing Bardock's impact from clairvoyance to him just going, I've got this weird feeling about Frieza, I guess. Also, it makes Goku's origin story even more like Superman's, and we're trying to get away from that comparison, but it can't be helped. It wasn't the worst thing out there, but it was weird to say the least. Number 5, the tingly back. Oh yes, the back tingles from Universe 6. I actually have no real ill feelings towards this, yet nor do I feel that it's a brilliant idea. I don't hate it, let's just say that. It all comes down to how Kaba describes how Super Saiyan works to Caulifla and Kale. It's his interpretation. It's like a mass of energy collating in your back, and you simply have to turn it on to activate it. Now, this was quite considerably panned by everyone at the time. Fans cried out that, oh, this just cheapened Super Saiyan and made Goku and Gohan's anguish look less poetically powerful. It was like something anyone could do. Well, that's what Super Saiyan is these days, anyone can get it. One thing we need to remember here is that despite these two universes having Saiyans, these two types have differing histories and therefore potentially evolutionary paths that differ also. Universe 7 Saiyans were more aggressive and animalistic, whereas the Universe 6 Saiyans had a more civilized awakening and sort of evolved away their tails and beast-like behaviour, becoming more human. Their power became maybe more discreet and locked away. Something I talk more about in my Universe 6 Saiyans video that you can find up top if you're curious. As for the tingly back, it's perfectly possible for this being the main way to access the power for these Saiyans that's unique to them. We don't know their full history yet and how much they've evolved over our Saiyans, and also this is Cabba's interpretation of the power, how it feels to him and how he experienced it. And sure, he originally learnt it the way to do it from Vegeta, by getting angry, but Cabba recalled the exact feelings and sensations that he got and was able to communicate it better thanks to Vegeta's experience in the first place. So yeah, this retcon is neutral to me. It doesn't cheapen Universe 7 Saiyans, but it might have been expressed better if you get what I mean. Number 6, Future Trunks. Full stop. Okay, I'll try and keep this short. Future Trunks from Z and the one that we got in Super are two different beasts, despite being voiced by the same guy. I'm glad Trunks is a thing, something that I mentioned in my discussion from last week, but how his time ended in Super was a retcon that I could not abide by. Essentially, his story was changed into him becoming a guest in another dimension to another Trunks and Mai. They were just plonked into somewhere they don't really belong. This information we got was awful, and a total smack in the face for all that he'd done. It might have been best if we didn't see Trunks in Super, or at least if he got a better ending. Okay, let's just move on, I've talked enough about this. Number 7, Dragon Ball GT. Good ideas, but not much else. In a way, GT was a retcon of a series. It was a way to try and recapture the charm of the original Dragon Ball, only to give up after about 3 episodes when the showrunners realised that they weren't Toriyama, and they decided it was too hard to pull off without the source there. So we got all these stories and it left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. It was a means to retcon the show without its creator to keep it going, and it fell down hard. Not through lack of trying, mind. They really did try to make something good, and a lot of things in GT do sound cool, like Shadow Dragons, bringing 17 back into play in some way, Baby. There were good things to be had. It just missed that little extra spark to make it truly something that could be well remembered. Oh well, it didn't work out, and perhaps Toei should have just left this to settle for a while before doing it, maybe planning more, or maybe paying Toriyama more to offer something more in terms of story. Number 8, Porunga, when Shenron is just too gosh darn inconvenient. This one's quite straightforward. Porunga originally could bring back only one person at a time. Nowadays, there are essentially no limits to multi-res with him. Both he and Shenron can do it. Now, okay, you can explain that this change is down to the source Namekian changing. It at least has got some kind of in-world explanation, but that doesn't make it a good thing. All it does is change the Namekians into a tool for the Dragon team to use when Shenron is either dormant or unable to be called upon at the time. With no limits now to what Porunga can do, all our heroes need to do is tell Dende to talk to New Namek, get them to gather the balls, and fix things. Oh yeah, they can do this 3 times more often than Shenron too. 4 months. Essentially, our heroes now have 12 wishes per year, max, available to them. If that same 1-person restriction was kept on with Porunga, our heroes could at least have to think more, the stakes would be slightly higher. I'm not a fan of this retcon. Number 9, Saiyans. Can't live with them, can't live without them. Again, another simple one. Saiyans make modern Dragon Ball what it is, as well as the global powerhouse in terms of a franchise. It's a necessary part of the show, and it also added mystery upon its first reveal. It gave Goku a new chapter of his life, and initially it was pretty jaw-dropping. However, this came with a heavy cost that was felt later on. If you weren't a Saiyan, you had to really work hard to stay relevant. And if you were a human, then thanks for playing, but if you could just move to the side over there and let the Saiyans and strong guys do their thing, that would be great. Most fans have an OC of a Saiyan, and heck, Ranch is one of them. It's just down to the fact that Saiyans are cool. They are very cool, but they are oversaturated. This initial retcon to Goku's past was good at first. Now though, it's been muddied by overexposure. Number 10. Namekians. Sluggish roots from glorious origins. I liked it better when I was a demon. Choice words from Piccolo there. This change from being evil incarnate with the King Piccolo saga to being just an anomaly in a peaceful and placid society of green slug people, it's a bit of a come down to say the least. However, this did work out well for one guy, Piccolo. It gave him one of the best and most complete redemption arcs in the series, and we now have him firmly installed as a fan favourite and a solid member of the team. It turned out well for him, but for the rest of his people, it sort of reduced their luster. Now they are treated like tools, like I mentioned in the Purunga part earlier. They are now servants of Goku and company. All I can say, it's a good thing that King Piccolo isn't around to see what happened to his people. Lastly, number 11, the Room of Spirit and Time. Okay, this one's the worst in my eyes. I don't mind Dende improving upon the Room of Spirit and Time, but he's improved it so much that it's got no peril anymore. Originally, this room was something not to be trifled with or taken lightly. This would break you if you weren't careful, and we retrospectively found out that Goku nearly went crazy in there after just being in there for a few months, and even Piccolo couldn't handle it solo, and that guy's the chillest person in the group. He meditates all the time, so if this could do that to Piccolo, then okay, that's pretty major. Vegeta and Trunks' time in there was very heavy, and Vegeta embraced this dangerous twist to this powerful facet of the Dragon Team. It was exciting, it was risky, and it could pay dividends if you were able to stick it out. Now though, it's just a tool, like everything else. It's all the gains whenever you want it. Wow. All it does now is to hurry things up when you've got an arbitrarily short deadline to deal with, like with the Tournament of Power, or dealing with Goku Black. No 2-day limit, otherwise you're left in another dimension forever. No fatigue mind-wise. It's just a room where you can do more training and it's pretty chill in there now. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm done here. This just makes me sad. So what do you guys think? Are these retcons making you feel the same way? What are your best and worst retcons of Dragon Ball that you can recall? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later.